Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the Council's second live in-person webinar. We are really excited to be having a continuation of these conversations. Today's webinar is the art and science of teaching, really focusing on the teacher prep aspect when it comes to the child development professional. So as we all know, in the field, we are faced with a number of concerns when it comes to shortages, thinking through how we move educators in through the path. And so with that, we're really excited about how we're continuing this process. And so the child development professional credential really builds on the child development associate. As we all know, we refer to the child development associate, also known as the CDA, as the first best step. As we think through the concept paper of the child development professional, we are moving that to the best next step. And so with that, we are positioning the child development professional really to talk about how we advance lead teachers into roles. So how do we get here? I mean, that's really the question that people want to know. And so this whole conversation and the CDP started with the Broader, Deeper, Fairer report and the recommendations that came through from that report. And I'm going to read to you exactly what it stated. I don't want to misquote what it stated. And the recommendation said, create a second national credential that layers onto the current CDA and indicates that educators have an increased level of understanding across any key subject areas and is held in equal esteem to a 4-year degree. So with that, a committee was formed to really have a discussion about taking those recommendations and what could happen. And so who better than to lead the committee than the Council Professional Recognition? So what we did was we created a work group. And from that work group, there were a number of conversations that happened. And from that, we actually pulled individuals from that work group to then start building a concept paper. There were a lot of iterations of the concept paper to where we are today. And so with that, we're having conversations with states that are already interested in piloting the CDP. Into career pathways, thinking about how it falls into quality rating improvement systems. And so this conversation and the CDP is really around a bridge, not a barrier, of how we elevate and how we continue supporting educators through the path of professionalism. So today's conversation, as I stated, is really to discuss how the CDP can be viewed. And so with that, I would love to introduce our distinguished panelists. So to my left, starting here, is Dr. Marie Masterson. Marie is our manager of ECE Competence here at the Council. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you so much.
Next to Marie is Dr. Kim Krzanowski. And Kim is the executive director of the Early Childhood Innovation Center at Delaware State. I use the abbreviations ECIC, right? So I have to remember what they actually stand for. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and next to Kim is Dr. Bisa Lewis. And Dr. Bisa Lewis is our director of ECE Competence and Practice at the Council too. So please welcome them. Thank you. So I'm going to jump in straight into our, first question. What gaps or limitations in the current post-CDA pathways is a child development professional aiming to address? Marie, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, as I was thinking about that question, I'm really looking back over the 20 years that I've been in the field at the state level, working at a state quality improvement and training perspective, and also working in higher education. And what's so interesting to me is that over that 20 years, we have had a mandate, a goal as a profession together to elevate teachers, to stabilize the profession, to really elevate quality in programs. And yet 20 years later, we're still facing a lot of the same problems that we were facing 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 5 years ago. And what we all know is that the pandemic exacerbated those issues that were in the field, just put the magnifying glass right on those. And I don't think it changed it as much as just brought it to our attention. And things in the field that were destabilized, particularly turnover in the field with teachers, is really it's something that really moves me and inspires me to do this work. We know in a recent report that 65% of programs that are serving our youngest children, birth to 5, are unable to fill slots in their programs. And so we have this empty space where we need to draw in excellent teachers. We also know that we have teacher turnover from about 43% in birth to 5 programs to 50% in programs that are subsidized, and also in that area of infants and toddlers. And so we're not able to serve all of the children who are actually subsidized to be served in the programs. So we just have these remaining gaps. And then we also have a gap within the profession where there are barriers to advancement for teachers who are working in birth through 3 and again in preschool, where there are gaps in that educational pathway and also gaps in the career pathway. And we'll be talking about what some of those are as we move through this session.
Thank you, Marie. Kim?
So to piggyback off of Marie, I think there's a real opportunity here for space. I think early childhood educators are looking for options, and they're looking for what those options are. For everyone, a CDA may be the first best step, and for others, they may decide they want to try a different route. I would say that the CDA, of course, is the best first step, but to get people to that place takes a little bit of, or a lot of it really, encouragement, support. At the ECIC, we have built a system to support our educators in a variety of pathways, CDA being a main one, but also associates and bachelors. But I think the CDP offers that option to fill that space that many other industry professions have. So why not early childhood? I think there's a real opportunity here with the CDP for someone to say, I achieved this, and now I want to achieve that. And what does that mean to me professionally? What does that mean for the children and families I'm working with? What does that mean for the profession as a whole? So I think there's a real opportunity. There are always going to be barriers. I think I have just come to realize in life that there's always going to be barriers, but it is through innovative programming and thinking and movement that we don't remove all of them, but we find a path around and through them sometimes with other opportunities, and I do think the CDP is one of those.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, great comments. I'm excited for the CDAs out there. So for 50 years, early educators have been earning this national credential. And some early educators throughout their career, for the first time, since the first time they earned their CDA, sometimes it's 30 years ago for many of them, right? They are continuing every 3 years to renew that CDA. But they've been a lead teacher for maybe 2 decades. And I'm excited that the council is coming back to them with a promise, saying, you know what? We recognize that you took the best first step 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's time for you to show the nation, as well, of course, where you work, that you have taken the next step, that you are a confirmed lead teacher, not just ready to be a lead teacher, but now you can do the job. So we're looking at the KSAs, those knowledge, skills, and abilities that they can perform, and we want to make sure that we can validate that, and not just that you're ready for the role, but that you can do the role. And so this will be a national certified lead teacher credential, so a national lead teacher certification, which is called for in the broader Deeper Fairer report.
Great, thank you. So Kim, can I come back to you because you were talking about this could be a new opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so can you share with us and the audience in what ways do you think the CDP could open new opportunities? And maybe also if you can talk a little bit more about what has been happening in Delaware, what ECIC has been doing as it relates to that.
Sure, I'd love to. I thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak about the great work in Delaware. So the ECIC is well, not new anymore. We've been here, we're going on our third year, but for the past few years, Delaware decided that they wanted to completely overhaul and streamline workforce supports when it comes to early childhood, which had been a long time coming, and with some generous funding, ongoing funding, and federal funding from the previous administration locally, we were able to not only design a program where we house scholarship opportunities, career advisement, and a huge initiative around just the CDA cohorts and whatnot, but we are able to do that under one house. Like many states, Delaware was in a situation where there were supports, but they were scattered. And for our workforce, who I know I'm preaching to the choir here, is working long hours, having to call one institution or one organization, wait to hear back because you're calling on a lunch break or after hours, and then not actually getting to talk to someone for a day or maybe even longer. We were unapologetic about making sure that we had a center dedicated to all of that. So the team at the ECIC is unapologetic in the work that they do each and every day. One of our mottos, or our main motto, is insisting on success. So it doesn't matter where you're coming from, where you are, we're going to work with you step by step to get you to be a CDA, or if you want to get really great, robust professional development, if you want to think about different careers within early childhood, what is the next or the best first step for you to do that. So we have a team of dedicated people here at the ECIC who are doing this each and every day. Our CDA initiative was huge for us. I'd say 5 years ago, Delaware had CDAs, but not at the rate, and people were not renewing. So we knew that there was an opportunity to really go very deep into what it would take for us to build a CDA program that provides coaching, one-on-one coaching, full-on support, scholarship to get the CDA assessment fee. So we're doing things in Delaware that I've always dreamed of doing, and now we have a space to do it. But I'm sorry, was there another question that you asked?
Well, I would love for you to just talk about with the launch of the concept paper. Yes. What opportunities you could see that moving forward.
Okay, I get lost sometimes in this work, so thank you.
It's okay.
So again, I think that there's an opportunity for someone. We just had a recognition ceremony where we recognized almost 200 CDAs walking across a stage like this. For some of them, they had been in the field for 20 plus years and never ever thought that they would be able to obtain this credential. They did it. Now they're ready. They may not be ready to automatically enter into a degree program, and some of them may not want to do that. So having an option. I know that sometimes this field, we like to often make references to the nursing field, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it today because I think people understand it, or the medical field. I think about if you go into the medical field, you can go in as a CNA, then after that you get some work experience, then the next step could be an LPN, then you're ready to go, then the next step is an RN. It would be really wonderful to have some options for our profession to be able to do that. And just as a CNA, an LPN, and an RN have different job opportunities, the recognition of what it took to get those credentials are there. So I think there's a real opportunity here for people to stack a credential or credentials together, and then what does that mean long term for them? I know we're going to get into that later, but I think there's a real opportunity now, and then even a bigger one in the future with an opportunity like the CDP.
Right. Thank you. So Bisa, when you hear Kim talk about what's been happening in Delaware and the opportunities, how might the theory and practice of what we currently have for the CDA evolve into what could be the CDP, because as we want to remind everybody, we are still in the conceptual aspect of the CDP. There's some framework and it's building upon the CDA, but the elements of what that exactly means, how many hours, things of that nature has not yet been developed. And so I would love for you to just talk to us a little bit about thinking about the involvement of what the CDP off of the CDA when it comes to the theory and practice.
Yes, so we want to build upon the current CDA competency standards. We're not looking at changing the CDA competency standards in terms of those 6 competency goals and those 13 functional areas, because the CDAs have shown that they can reach those, right? But the CDPs will show the work that they do every single day. So we're looking at more of an advanced level of those skills. For instance, I will take, I mentioned last webinar comes to goal 1, which is safe, healthy learning environment. I gave the example about lesson planning, right? And so let's take that a little deeper into curriculum, right? So with the CDA, they have a lesson plan in their portfolio. It may not be one they developed, but it may be one that they just use in their program, right? But a CDP would create their own lessons. But even higher than that, they often, based on their state certification or their quality rating improvement system, as you mentioned, they may be using a certain curriculum. So we want to show that they know how to assess, evaluate, plan. And it's a cyclical process, right? You go back and you assess again. Did the activities, the experiences I planned work for the children or not to help them reach their goals? Oh, this did work, let me go back and plan something different. Let's evaluate that. It's a cyclical process. So CDAs may not be doing that every single day, but CDPs, because they have at least 2 years of experience, they're doing this every single day. But who's been around to document that and validate that and offer them a credential for that? So we want to just take it to the next level and give them credit and recognition for what they're already doing. Anyone who's working and teaching, it is a daily, serious job of building curriculum and planning and determining. When we say art and science of teaching, that term has been around for a long time. And taking the theory of what's presented before you, no matter what theories in different areas of development, do you know how to implement those and when to implement those? And so we're excited that the CDPs will be able to demonstrate that not only do I know about teaching, I know how to teach different types of children, work with different types of families, so elevating what they've learned with those CDA competency standards.
Thank you. Can you build on that a little bit and talk to us about maybe the types of education or professional experiences that should count toward the CDP preparation to have educators demonstrate those higher level competencies that you just mentioned? Yes,
so I know when I was working in the field, whether I was in the classroom or even as a director or in higher ed, our teachers, whether lab school or Head Start, whether they were new teachers or teachers who were experienced, they were often trained, right? They had in-service training, pre-service training, ongoing training. And so based on the curriculum that we use, we even had that curriculum company to come out and train them. Sometimes it's a week-long training. Sometimes it was every quarter they had to go to a training. So let's say that's 30 hours of training that they received just from the curriculum company, right, to implement that curriculum. That should count for something. What we're trying not to do at the council is to require the teachers to do something totally separate from what they already do. We want to give them credit for what they're currently doing in their work. So credit for the training they're receiving. When you think about assessment and evaluation, right, with CDAs, they are in their portfolio, they collect. Off the anecdotal records, they have to observe and show they can do record keeping. So that's wonderful. You're collecting, which is assessment. People don't always, if I can take a moment to explain, people don't always understand the difference between assessment and evaluation. They're 2 different processes, but they can happen at the same time. The terms can be used interchangeably, but assessment is collecting information on the work children do and how they do it. But evaluation is reviewing that information, finding value in it, determining if they met those goals, right? So a CDP would be able to do more than a CDA in terms of just observing and record keeping. A CDP would be able to assess and evaluate those children in all those domains of development.
Great, thank you. Yes, no,
Abena,
please.
if I could just piggyback or dovetail off of this, back to my analogy with the nurses, just like a CNA can do something different than an LPN, right? And there's a method there that, and I also think about too, as a teacher or anyone, you can take an exam, right? And you get whatever you get, an A, B, C, or maybe you fail it, whatever it is. But then to evaluate why you scored well or why you weren't successful does take a deeper level of thinking and training and support. So again, you know, if you are going in to get your blood taken, right, the person that takes your blood can do one thing, but another person has to read that blood and look at the results, right? So I'm trying to make some analogies here, even for myself and even for, you know, people listening here, that sometimes that's what we're doing. It's not reinventing the wheel here. It's just taking what we already know, using other examples that have been successful, and having people understand that this is not taking away, this is adding to, and that the value add, I think, is just, the opportunity is just far beyond what I think maybe people were thinking in the beginning.
Right, thank you for that. Kim, I would love to stay with you on that. So can you describe how a process can be built to recognize education and professional development, and really what partnerships can be thought about or endeavored when it comes to higher education institutions and the exploration of, you know, maybe articulation pathways?
Yes, I would love to. So I spent a number of years in higher ed. I understand the way that it works. I understand that higher ed faculty and, you know, the support there is different than sometimes other professional development. But partnership, I'm going to kind of lean into that. I think there is a real opportunity here for higher ed to think about how the CDP could be a way for that group of professionals to support this group of professionals. I know in Delaware it took us over 10 years to get the CDA recognized for credit for prior learning. I'm happy to say that in Delaware, if you go to most of any of our institutions of higher ed and you are a CDA, you will get 12 programmatic credits. Not electives, not electives. We fought very hard to get that, but programmatic credit, because this is a signal to our profession that if you are a CDA, it is now recognized. So it doesn't matter if I go to you in admissions or you to admissions, it doesn't matter, because there is MOUs and there is an agreement that gets that. And we are seeing over the past 2 years what that has done. But that's a partnership with higher ed. It was understanding that there's not anything taken away from what you're doing in that world, but we are helping layer, actually helping you increase your enrollment sometimes with an influx of CDAs. So I think a partnership around experience, professional development, hours could be very innovatively thought through with higher eds who want to be in an innovative partnership. There's a space for everyone in this work, and I think the council is prime and ready to have those conversations and to think about states who want to engage in it. Because sometimes I know for Delaware, or just in general, if it's working over here in one state, then other states are more apt to join in and learn about it. So you just need a few people and a few higher ed institutions, if that's the route that you want it to go, to say, we have an idea, help us, how can we do this? You're already helping and supporting CDAs who maybe are going into your program. So now what about this next step? What can we do to make sure that that partnership stays strong?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'm going to detour a little bit. I'm going to come back to you, Bisa, because I think, the conversations that we are engaged in with the CDP, and we've heard a lot of positive feedback, but also want to just remind people, we're open for conversations. We want to hear the feedback. We want to hear any hurdles, any potential hesitations or items like that. We are, open to engage in those conversations. But as Kim just stated with the partnerships, I think there's a lot of resistance when it comes to, the thought of the concept of the CDP. And for us, we view it as not a competition, right? It's really an area for us to be able to support educators. So can you talk to us a little bit about when you are out engaging in conversations, how you, engage in those conversations so individuals know that it's not a competition, it's not going to be a this or that. It's, again, as I stated, when we started, it's really a bridge. We're looking for this to be a bridge. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, we want people to work together where they are. What I found too is that, states and even in certain cities and counties, they're not talking to one another. The two-year college is not talking to the 4-year, right? The child care programs are not talking to the, sometimes Head Start or pre-K. So we want people to gather together and talk. Those consortiums, work groups are so important because we get a chance to listen to one another and find out what the needs are, right? So the goal is to find out what the needs are, and different people can meet different parts of those needs. With the CDP, and I think about what Kim was talking about when it comes to Delaware. So in Delaware, when you all were thinking about what courses would count for credit, right? We know what CDAs do. They know those, everybody knows about the CDA competency standards. And so I mentioned assessment and evaluation, and I've heard Kim say before, I think assessment counts for some of the coursework for higher ed. We want them to talk to one another. Some higher ed doesn't always know what the CDA is. They think it's just training, but we know it's a full process, right? It's training. There's a verification visit, so there's observation and evaluation there, right? We know there's a professional portfolio, there's a CDA exam, and they don't always know that, and they're entering they're tackling the approaching credit for prior learning in a way that they do with other professions, where they're only looking at the training that was received. And so the conversations I'm in, I'm trying to help them understand that there's a full process involved. In addition to that, the council doesn't review and approve training. So we want people to talk in their communities and understand what's required so they can determine who will they accept the training from for their program. And because the goal is when they earn their CDA and now when they earn their CDP, for them to be able to go sit in any seat at a college in their area and them to say, okay, at our college, we're going to accept this for this many credits. We know the threshold is about 25% in terms of, it depends on their accreditation for the college, but how much credit, how many hours would they take towards the degree in order for them to award you a degree at their institution. And so, so many layers to that conversation, but the goal is to get people talking, understand the full process of the CDA and what it is, and how to accept credit or how to be a part of that conversation. So there's not just empty trainings that are happening out there, that when people are offering training or developing programs, they're thinking about how the pieces fit together. So the puzzle pieces are just scattered right now, right? Our goal is to make sure that people think about all of their programs and think, okay, if we offer this particular training, it will also count for CDA, right? And then it will also be articulated to the college university. So pulling all the pieces, separate pieces together to build that wonderful puzzle for credit.
Great.
And to advance in the field.
Yeah, thank you. So Marie, I would love to ask you, knowing your background coming from Virginia and Illinois in terms of like systems aspects, to really talk to us about like what role you feel that training organizations, along with higher ed institutions, play in trying to prepare candidates on the realm of the CDP.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to start with what is a CDP. And the CDP is an experienced teacher who already has the CDA and who has mastered the skills they need and can really demonstrate those as a lead teacher. And also, the part, if you read, I encourage you all to read the CDP concept paper. The second part to that aspect of becoming a CDP is that the CDP understands and is able to contribute to quality improvement in the program and also propel forward continuous quality improvement. And so the reason that's so important is that that is what state systems are all about. For 20 years that I've been in the field, this year, 2025, we started out saying, how can we improve the experiences of young children and families in our programs? And quality programming is everything that happens in that program that's a lever to influence the outcomes for development and for learning for children, and to become a learning community for families. And so the CDP, having that goal of developing mature professionals who can contribute to quality improvement, that is the importance of, and the whole foundation of what state systems and state system buildings has been all about all of this time. And so it's our hope that state systems will recognize the importance of the CDP, understand the benefits to them to stabilize and sustain and build their workforce within that community. And then also an important part will be to help CDPs document their work experience, whether that's through a registry in the state, but again, to understand that they already have demonstrated those competencies at the higher level. And then for higher education, Kim and Bisa already spoke a little bit about it, but higher education has some really important responsibilities there. And just like they are doing supporting the CDA, they're going to do the same thing with the CDP. They will evaluate their coursework to determine what elements of the CDP competencies that the council determines will be there are part of their coursework, what maybe needs to be tweaked to include that. They may be offering additional coursework. We certainly want them to articulate and accept for credit CDP previous experience. But I think that there are three little parts to that, and one is that higher education needs to get on the bandwagon of the movement that's happening now with credit for prior learning. It's across all the workforces, both in nursing and in health fields, in technology, and we need to acknowledge the fact that and learn about what non-traditional learners are. And our field is founded on, it's anchored by non-traditional learners. They aren't going to be attending classes at 11 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon because they're working full time. They're managing families. Many of them are bilingual and have other responsibilities in life. And so the role of higher ed is to kind of join with the community, to mentor students, and not to be separate from the early childhood workforce and field, but to really understand, like you two said, how to build those bridges from higher education to the community and to become sustaining partners with what's going on. The benefit to higher ed is they will, for CDPs who want to go on, they will go ahead and continue to go on for an associate's or a bachelor's degree. But there's still a benefit to higher ed to just learn all they can about the CDP and the systems that are supporting that in the workforce.
Great, thank you. So as you were responding, you mentioned about potential documentation.
Yes.
So could you share a little bit about what that, examples of what that could look like as we talk about the CDP for a candidate's portfolio?
Well, exactly, and we haven't determined yet because we're still in the process of our scientific evaluation of the field and what will be important for the CDP. But just like a CDA requires a certain amount of training within those specific areas, we know that the CDP as well is going to be looking at certain anchors for what we consider advanced practice in the field. And they may have already, they are earning and learning at the same time. And so we want to give them as much credit as possible for the learning that they have already received.
Thank you. Kim, I'm going to come back to you. And so my question is, what foundational systems must be established? Which key stakeholders should the council really be engaging in or should be involved as we think about how we continue conversations, how we design the framework for the CDP? thinking about experience, thinking about the readiness of candidates, the evolving aspect of a individual who has obtained the CDA. Can you talk to us? Because again, as I stated, we are very open, and this is not something that's being built just within the four walls of the council. So we want to hear like who we need to really include and continue to include in these conversations.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think that's you hit it spot on. You're not doing this in a vacuum, and I think the profession and stakeholders and advocates really do appreciate hearing that over and over, because so many times policy, procedures, credentials, requirements, they are 2 people, 3 people in a room making a decision for hundreds or thousands of folks. I can say in Delaware, what has worked for us, and we are small but mighty, but what has worked for us is just to all of your point, getting the right people at the table. And what I mean by the right people is CDAs, educators, people who are doing this work, degree holders. We call them scholars or alumni of our program, so graduates of our program. Higher ed, not only faculty, but people in higher ed who can make decisions. We had a higher ed steering committee to put together our MOU for credit for prior learning, and it took 10 years for a lot of different reasons, but the last year we got a lot of movement because we had to, I'll say, re-educate folks about what the CDA is. And for some people at that table, because 10 years is a long time and people had come and gone, they didn't realize there's a portfolio, there's an exam, there's a third party that comes out and does evaluation, where other industries were getting similar credit for prior learning just based on one. So it was this eye-opening experience at that table for us to explain why this would be beneficial. It's a win-win. But having the right people, higher ed, stakeholders, advocates, state level people who are running your Office of Early Learning or your Department of Education, making sure that they're in this from the beginning, because I know in our state, regulations flow through the Department of Education. So if the CDP, like the CDA or a degree program, is going to be accepted and or required, it needs to have that conversation. So we're not working in a vacuum and another vacuum's over here and suddenly we have all these vacuums. We got a bunch of Roombas running around, and we don't need that. That is not what the profession needs. They need one solid message that says, if you do this, this is what it be recognized as. If you do this, and then a real simple, clear graphic of what does it mean to do all of this together. So I think that there is, I haven't been to one table where people don't want to talk about things. And I know sometimes we can all get caught up in the barriers and the negative and what hasn't happened. But I think this, if there's any time right now to do something bold and different for this profession, now is the time to do it. So I think you have to invite people locally that are movers and shakers and influencers, people that have positions of power where they can make the changes, and that way that you can see it start and then finish. I know a lot of times in different states what happens just in state systems, you have a bunch of conversations and then it stops. And then 2 years later you go back, but you've lost all of that initiative, so now you're starting from the beginning. So I think if this is going to be something that states really want to see through, they have to be at the ground level thinking about it now and getting rid of any unnecessary red tape that's involved for someone to seemingly or seamlessly come right in and do that. And that takes time. But if you do it right, you can be successful. And we've seen it in Delaware. It can be done. You can remove those barriers, and you can see and you can hear from your higher ed faculty and your partners how prepared students are coming in. We are hearing locally from our higher ed partners that they are amazed that the students who are coming in with that CDA are seamlessly integrating into those higher level courses. And I don't know if that would have been said a few years ago. So it's working. The CDP offers another opportunity for folks who have already maybe done that, or they have some more experience. Now they're ready not just to assess, but to evaluate their own practices.
Right.
But I think higher ed has to be at the table, but they have to understand why they're at the table.
Great. Marie and Bisa, would you like to add in to, our discussions in terms of making sure who needs to be at the table as we engage in the design and implementation of this, process?
I get excited when I hear Kim talk about everything it took. And you're right. All it takes is one person's job to change, right? One person to, no longer be in that role and you're starting all over again. I want to just add in, love the different collaborations, partners, stakeholders you talked about. I want to add in CTE, Career and Technical Education.
Absolutely.
Because let me tell you, high school students are sitting in a classroom from 2 to 4 years learning ECE content. They're learning about theory, they're learning about practices, they're actually working in or going to childcare centers, getting their hours. So many high schools have started to earn their CDAs, right? Some have other ways they complete the pathway, but the CDA is an option. And so those high school students are primed and ready. They work with children so well. A lot of them do their babysitting anyway, right? But now they can be an early learning professional. The CDA gives them that great start. So some of them working in childcare centers or in after-school programs while they're going to college. But wow, what if they are close to finishing college or still in college and fast forward 2 or 3 years after high school because they're working at a childcare center? They have the opportunity to expand their career and earn a CDP because they've been doing that job anyway. Every state does not recognize a CDA as a lead teacher credential. Some states do. The council doesn't, say it as a lead teacher, national teacher credential, but some states recognize it as such. But wouldn't it be wonderful for there to be an opportunity starting at the beginning of the pathway for people to earn, for professionals to earn that credential? So I just want to throw CTE in there and give it a plug.
Sure, appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that comes to my mind is often the higher ed is separate from the early childhood community in their local community. And by bringing on students in the CDP role who are actively working in the field, they're not just getting hours or volunteering, they are employed by local early childhood programs. Programs are able to build a relationship with the coaches for that program, with the leadership from that program, with that whole staff, and really strengthen the local community, which I think is so important for the field, is to really look at that economic impact on the community. And the benefit to higher ed is they're going to draw in students beyond just the teacher. They're going to be elevating the profession really throughout those local programs. So that's something I hope the CDP will really draw us forward to do, is really focus in on our community and what can we do to, invite the mayor, invite the librarian, invite your health professionals, invite everyone who's just invested in children to understand that working together we can make such a big difference.
Great, thank you. So Kim, this is your one and only chance, okay, to answer this question. However, no, I know, no pressure. Would love your perspective really around what some of those important factors the council should keep in mind, right? I asked you the previous question about who the council should think about including in conversations. What factors do you think that we at the council need to keep in mind as we create the CDP to ensure that it's both rigorous and also accessible for our early childhood educators?
Well, this is my only chance. I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity. I think the council, there's a lot of factors, and I'm sure you know, none of the ones that I could come up with, you haven't thought about it. There's cost, there is the perception, there's the partnership. But what I would encourage the council and just anyone doing this work, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all doing this work together, is to be unapologetic and be bold in what it is. At the end of the day, the work that we're doing is for children. And I think a lot of times, I even do it myself, we think about other factors, but it really has to always come back to children in these classrooms, in family child care, in different programs, that the people around them are so important, and we need to continuously raise the bar. And I think, if you want my opinion, which you asked, I think the council needs to continue being just bold in their statements and their push and their philosophy behind doing what's right for children, families ultimately, and professionals. The council is, you know, internationally recognized as that voice, you know, for professionals, being, you know, with the CDA and possibly some other things like the CDP. And I think, again, if there is any time for our profession to be united and say, we're ready for something else. We are ready to continuously recognize people doing this work and to give them options like other professions have done 10, 20, 30 years ago. Again, the other factors you all are working through, and you know, it'll take time, because those are the questions. How much will it cost? What will it take? What's the training? Those are all logistics that I have full confidence that this amazing team will be able to figure out. But I think, again, my team is listening here, so they're going to hear this again, but planting the flag and saying, this is what is right for the field, because this is what is right for children. And I think we have to continuously ground ourselves in that each and every day, because if we make decisions that are based for what's right for children, everyone ultimately wins. And then for our profession, thank you. And for our profession, we have to have voices like the council and others saying, like, we're done, like, this is it. We are ready to move forward and elevate this profession. So I can always get behind that message, and I think other people in other states will follow, because we're ready. People are ready for it. So that's the major factor. All the other ones you can work out, I'm sure, but the major factor is just to go forward. You know, the time is now, just to push forward.
Right. Thank you. Marie, in preparation for our next webinar, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of how credentials are created, but just a quick plug for everybody listening. Make sure that when we send out the information, our next webinar is really diving into the assessment, implementation, and the building of a credential. But I would love to ask you now, as we, you know, refine the process and as we take steps, how we think about thoroughly testing, you know, the CDA process before we put it into full implementation.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the council's an expert in credentialing. They have been pioneers in credentialing the first 10 years. Imagining the direction they were going to go in the next 40 years, being extremely successful with 1 million or more now CDAs. And we have research, we have scientists on board here, and we are going to look at the field and the criteria and the competencies that is research anchored to understand what it is in the classroom. Thank you for talking about the children, that makes a difference for children and families. And so as Bisa said, we talked about how a CDA can make a book list read engagingly to children, and prioritize language, really build a classroom that has those positive interactions. The research says that our CDA interactions with children hold a flag to those with a 4-year degree. They're committed to the children. But we know that a CDA, that those competencies are going to go deeper into what's essential for children to thrive. For example, working with dual language learners, understanding more about inclusive practices in the classroom, knowing how to work with families in a more direct way to make teaching decisions for children, and individualizing teaching so that it makes sense, that it connects to children's context. And so keeping all that in mind, the council will refine what those specific areas that research is telling us is really important for children. And once that's done, we are going to go down the pathway continuing this open conversation that we have with the field, because our goal is to create a credential that is sustainable, that's impactful, and that is really going to make a difference to fill the gaps in what's in the field. And I have total confidence in our council, extraordinary council teams, the expert. I've only been here since October, so I can toot the council horn as a little bit of an outsider still. The staff on the council are literally experts in the field in every area, and they are going to do the scientific thing to create a credential that is anchored in all of the important aspects, but they are also going to continue to partner with the field to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the workforce, of teachers, and then making that impact with children and families.
Thank you for that. And with that, talking about the field, I would love to kind of open it up for us to take one or two additional questions coming from the chat, if possible. I'm going to ask our studio audience here if you could help us out with, sharing one or two questions that might be coming in from the chat.
Not a question, but a comment. Kimberly from Atlanta shared that she loves the idea of continuous quality improvement that allows long-standing staff who aren't interested in the BS for a variety of reasons, but want to continue to receive credit for what they do daily. And so just reinforcing the idea of career pathways.
Reinforcing the idea of career pathways.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
What the CD, let's see, there's a question that just got removed. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. This is what happens when you have live audience, right? So working with that. As we think about our next steps, would love to, we've talked about who needs to be at the table. We've talked about what we need to think about as the council. But I think a key aspect also is really about the field insights, right? And so how do we drive continuous conversation? How do we open the doors for a lot of that partnerships? And so I would be interested if any of you have any thoughts or additional suggestions in terms of how the CDP remains responsive to what's actually happening in real world classrooms for the field. Yeah.
Well, I just was thinking, even when you were speaking, so I'll make sure I connect the dots to your question, but I was thinking about an opportunity for the field with the CDP around mentoring, which again, successful industries have leadership development programs, mentoring programs. They understand that people come in with different levels or needs, and they use that to keep growing their profession. So I think there's an opportunity here, right, with voices from the field, with interviewing or listening to current CDAs or people who are deciding, what am I going to do? Am I going to take the first best step? Am I going to go somewhere else? Like, what would the CDP mean to them, right? And then, of course, they might say, well, what's required in my state? It always goes back to that. I find that in our conversations in Delaware, people kind of lead with that in career advisement. Well, I don't need a CDA. Okay, currently you may not need a CDA, but if you have a CDA, let's look at all of the other opportunities that are going to be open. So now you could quickly switch it, flip it, when the council is ready to say a CDP is now going to offer additional opportunities. But I think there's a mentoring component here that's very special that could happen with CDAs, CDPs, or vice versa, to really understand, again, back to yet great example about assessment and evaluation, right? Because, you know, they don't have, many programs don't have ongoing coaching, right? They get a coach, like we offer coaching for the CDA, and then when they obtain the CDA, then that coaching goes on to someone else. In Delaware, we're thinking about ways that we can layer coaching at different layers because, again, successful industries have coaching available at all levels, executive coaching as well as entry level. Right. So I think about this mentoring coaching component that the CDP might be able to offer for people, and that could also count as hours. Mm-hmm. If you are mentoring a CDA or someone who's thinking about that, that might be an innovative way to think about experience. So you're already doing it. And I know there's probably people on this webinar right now that could raise their hand and say they are doing mentoring informally anyway. Right. So thinking about how that package could be delivered to say, you're already doing this. The council could support it in coming up with some ideas or maybe even a train the trainer program around that, right? To talk about what really intrusive mentoring could be. But that could be an opportunity is what I was thinking.
I'm glad we're recording this.
And I want to say something really quickly. I want to really put in a plug for anyone who's out there either hearing this live or who's watching it on a recording to stay connected to the council. We have a higher education handbook coming out with an entire section on mentoring and on partnerships within the community and on just working together with people in your state to build strength into the profession as a whole based on credentialing. So look for those resources, but also keep in touch with the council related to just updates on where we are. And this is just one in a whole series of conversations we're having. So we hope that you're really responding with your own ideas and questions and feedback for us as well. Just wanted to put in a plug for the higher education handbook.
I love that. And as we are coming to a closure, I would love to get your final thoughts. What you would like to share to the field in terms of the CDP, how people stay connected, so however you would like to conclude our webinar.
So I had dinner yesterday out here in DC at the wharf. And after dinner, I went walking down the pier and I saw all this fresh seafood, and I asked one of the salesmen, I saw crab, I saw the females separated from the males. I remember asking, why are they separated? What's the difference? And he said, the males have more meat. Okay. And then I was looking at all the different species that were out there of seafood. I saw a little small fish, I saw medium size, I saw a really long fish, I saw wide fish. And so this morning I was having a reflective moment. And as I was reflecting this morning, I thought about the profession. And I said, you know, we have to be like fishermen. We have to cast a wide net, whether it's for stakeholders and partnerships, collaborations on the support end, but also for the teachers. Some teachers we can't predict. Some will stay in the classroom for a few short years, maybe a few months. Some may go on to the school system. Some may decide, I think I want to do something else totally out of the field. Some will go up into leadership. And you know, some will have a long career and stay in the classroom and continue to renew or get more credentials. We don't know what the trajectory is of anyone's career or their role in the field. So we should cast a wide net to support the educators, but also cast a wide net, starting in high school with apprenticeships as well, and with professional development and with these credentials for quality lead teachers and recognize their credentials. So that was just my thought this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm loving this because I drove in today from Delaware, and I was driving through DC, and DC is a different atmosphere than Dover, Delaware. So, I mean, if you haven't been there, it's a beautiful space, but it's not DC. And I was at a light, and I looked over to my left, and there was not a park, but there was a bunch of grass. But maybe it was a park, it probably was a park, but it was small. And there were buggies. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where 6 children, we call them buggies, but like big strollers, right? And a childcare program was there in the grass, and they had toys, and they had tunnels, and their toddlers were there exploring outside. And I thought to myself, yes, there's a sign here. I'm on my way to do this webinar. I look over and I see what this learning is right here, right? And it's the atmosphere, and it's probably a normal thing that this program does every day. But for me to drive in and see that, so to piggyback on that, my hope is that that learning, which is so raw to people, right? Coming out, bringing it, having children explore the outside. You can't always do that everywhere, especially in a city setting, right? So to have that grassy area, it was very smart for them to use it. But my hope and dream is that just as when you graduate from, with your associates, a bachelor's, a doctorate, I know when I got my doctorate, I was so proud to add that EDD to my last name, and it's now my calling card. I see that with our CDAs. It says Susie Smith, CDA, and we encourage our scholars to do that. And I'm thinking about the CDP, right? You can have as many credentials after your name, right? And set yourself apart from someone interviewing from another job. So I hope, again, as the profession, as we unify what it is that we're doing, these types of opportunities, people see the importance. It starts with knowing that outside areas, outdoor play, exploration is key, but then someone had to teach you that. Someone had to assess that, evaluate that to know what the benefit of it. And I saw it today, and my hope is that we can just continue this momentum in professionalizing and elevating the field.
Great.
Oh, absolutely. And in 30 seconds, the subtitle of this talk today is The Art and Science of Teaching. And I want to say, as a licensed teacher in 2 states, I'm here for teachers. And the council is here for teachers. We are here to elevate, support, strengthen, listen to, and surround teachers with care and with honor and with recognition for what they do. To me, that is what the council is all about. And to me, the CDP, it's the next level of support that we, the council, and the field as a whole can do to honor and respect what teachers do every single day. They get up at 5 a.m., they take their love, their energy, and their expertise to give to other people's children in the field. And to me, that is what this is all about.
Thank you so much. I'd love to thank everybody out there that has joined us, for the past hour, just, listening to our conversation in the chat. We will be continuing this on 2 more live webinars, or 2 more webinars. But please help me, in thanking Dr. Marie, Dr. Kim, and Dr. Bisa for this afternoon. Thank you.